This is Garden 30. I try to spend 30 minutes every week in my garden, weeding and talking to you guys about different topics. Today, we're going to go over the last 6 of David Holmgren's Permaculture Principles. Last time, I missed a week, but the week before last, I went through the first 6 of Holmgren's Principles. And while we discuss these, I'm just going to sit here and pick the weeds out of my garden. I was inspired to do this by Nicole Sauce. She has her Garden 30 videos, or live streams she used to do. But anyway, so the next principle to go over is design patterns to details. So what that basically means is we need to start out. Let me move the camera a little bit. There we go. We need to start out with designing things bigger picture and then work the details in. So like the first thing you need to do is design like water, access, structure, that kind of stuff. So for example, like the garden here the garden's where it's at because this shed was already here when I moved in. So we're just using it, and then we designed the garden to have paths in it and around it. Look at the grass here, that's great. But designed the garden to have paths in it and around it, so when the water comes off the roof behind me, it will soak into the ground, right into the garden, and be spread out through those paths. So that's design from patterns into details. So the pattern is, in this case, the structure's already here. So let's use that and build from there into the details of how the garden will be structured. And it didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. The paths aren't wide enough, and we don't have enough room. So we're already expanding it that way to the north. We're going to expand it to the west east too. And when we do that, we're going to make the paths wider, which require a lot of work because we've got to move all the mulch off of everything and move all the raised beds and rearrange it. But one of the other principles that we went over the other day is listen to feedback. So the feedback is the paths aren't wide enough. We can't get in there to harvest and garden and weed very well, and we need more space. And this poor little broccoli plant here, look at this guy. This is the only one that survived. The bugs are really hammering my broccoli plant. I don't mind, but Sarah and the kids do. Basically, the only thing we've gotten out of the garden so far is tomatoes, and Sarah and the kids don't really like the tomatoes all that well. Alright, next principle is integrate rather than segregate. So a good example of that is how I planted my tomato plants, mixed them with the basil plants, and I planted cucumber plants in that too, and the pepper plants, so they could all grow and intertwine together. A good classic example of this is the Three Sisters gardens. So you plant corn first, and corn grows up pretty tall. So then you plant beans around the corn, and the corn, the beans climb up the corn, and that acts as a corn stalk. And then you plant, and the corn uses a lot of nitrogen. The beans put nitrogen in the soil, and then you plant squash around it, and the squash provides ground cover for everything and protects from water from evaporating out of the system. And all three of those plants work well together. So instead of segregating them and growing a row of corn, a row of beans, and a row of squash, if you grow them together, they all work together and help each other. That's a good grass root. I'm mostly concerned about getting grass roots out. A couple people say hi. Tyron Taylor says I can get a shout out. That'd be way cool. So hi. No, I'm not planting. I'm gardening. That was somebody asked what I was doing. Or I'm weeding. Every Wednesday I try to do a live stream while I'm weeding and discuss something related to my channel. So this week we're discussing the last 6 principles of David Holmgren's Principles of Permaculture. A couple of weeks ago we did the first 6. All right. Use small, slow. The next principle is use small, slow solutions. So we don't want to go crazy and do something radical without thinking about it. Like I don't know, dig up our entire backyard to turn it into a pond to raise ducks. Like I don't have room for ducks. I don't have room for that kind of pond. Happy birthday. Somebody's saying Russia, really? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway. Oh, look at that. Anyway, you want to do things that are really slow and integrate things and start off with small scale stuff with the idea that you can make those larger to begin with. So like we're slowly removing our grass. We didn't run a sod cutter to cut out all the grass all at once and then plant wild seed mixture. We're doing it slowly and moving throughout the garden slowly over time. And hello to everybody that's watching. I normally don't get this many viewers, so thanks. Glad you guys are making it. So do things slowly in your garden and on your homestead. Another big one, people tend to want to get too many critters all at once. They go to the feed store to get feed for their rabbits, and they're like, oh man, they got chickens. I want chickens, and they get chickens, and they have baby chicks. They don't have any place to keep them. They don't have a brooder set up. They don't have any place, a chicken coop, nothing like that. They don't have a run, and now they're scrambling to take care of all those things. When if they would have done it slower and more methodical, they would have been much better off, much happier, and much more likely to succeed. Both succeed in having good, strong, healthy chickens, but also succeed as in being able to grow chickens over the long term and not getting frustrated and getting rid of them. Look at that root. That's good stuff there. Now this bucket of weeds, I'm going to make a video about it later, but once it's full, I'm going to fill it full of water and put a weight of some sort on there to hold everything under the water and let the nutrients leach out into it and make a high nitrogen liquid fertilizer. I'm actually going to dump it in the compost pile because there's not enough nitrogen in the compost piles. And that way we're going to reuse all these weeds, and actually all this nutrient that's coming out of these weeds are pulling out of the ground will be returned back into the garden eventually through compost. Well, these are some big grass roots. I like pulling up big grass roots. All right. Small, slow solutions. Use and value diversity. So we already talked about that a little bit, but oh, there we go. So value diversity is like planting different things and valuing what those different plants have. Allowing different niches in your garden. Some of that for wildlife, some of that for humans. And valuing all those little things. And not having nothing but chickens on your property. Also have quail and rabbits and garden. And don't get so caught up on one thing. Like, oh, I garden, so I have plenty of food. I produce. Well, if you garden, you need fertilizer. Well, if you're also growing rabbits and chickens, you'd have a way to process your weeds and turn them into fertilizer. Looks like the bolt fell out of my homemade gate here. Let me just slap this together real quick. Like if we had chickens, all these weeds could be fed to the chickens, and then the chickens would then, we could use the chicken manure and out of the coop, which the coop will be filled full of mulch. So feed the weeds to the chickens eat them, and then they poop in the mulch, and then we use the mulch to make compost to put back on the garden. That's an ideal way of doing it. Really integrates all those things, but you're valuing the diversity of all the different parts, and then you don't just have chickens, you move on from there and get different critters. We're building right there. I'm working on that. That's gonna be a video. That's a bathtub that I bought off of Facebook that's going to end up being a worm bin integrated right into the garden. So we'll be able to throw a lot of our kitchen scraps in there, and chicken manure when we get chickens, and all kinds of stuff we can throw in there and let the worms produce, and then produce manure for us. Great fertilizer, and the liquid that comes off of it will run right into the garden bed through those paths I talked about earlier. All right, use edge and value the margins. All right, so if you hold on a second. So if you go fishing and you see a spot where like the water drops off, the little fish will tend to stay in the shallower areas where they're better protected, and they'll eat, plankton, stuff like that. And then the big fish have to live in the deep water. So right there on the edge, there's a lot of medium-sized fish that can swim up in the shallow area to eat the little fish, or to get away from predators in the big area. And the big fish know that, so they'll come. So if you can cast right along where that edge is and pull your lure across that edge, you're more likely to catch at least medium-sized fish. And if you cast just beyond that, you're likely to catch bigger fish because the fish congregate around that edge. So same thing in the garden. So edges are where things live. So I got a huge problem with the grass growing along the fence here. I'm gonna work on that another day. But anyway, so the fence creates the edge of the garden. So I got the grass problem growing up here. So what I need to do is value that edge more and plant something that's going to replace the grass on this side. Now we want to eventually put a decorative river around here, and some garden ponds. What that'll do is attract toads and stuff like that, and we can plant some stuff in there, and that will use that edge instead of letting the grass grow there. And the grass can't grow in the water. So we're using the edge instead of the edge being a problem. And right now we have tomatoes and cucumber plant growing up mixed in with the fence. I know someone, she bought her house and she was decorating it. Or, yeah, she was landscaping the yard. And she went and got a bunch of rocks and made like mulch planter or mulch beds, and then put rocks around it. Well, when she did that, she did put weed barrier underneath the mulch. Well, I told her she needs that plastic weed edge thing to put, and then put the rocks around that to cover that up, because what'll happen is weed seeds will grow in there or blow in there, and weeds will really love to grow in that edge because they're around those rocks, because those rocks provide all kinds of little texture, places to shelter the seeds so they don't get eaten by birds, places to collect, shade, a little bit of warmth sometimes, and that provided a place for those to grow. Well, now she has to spend time weeding it because she didn't value that edge and that diversity that the edge provided, and she ended up with the kind of diversity she didn't like. But it's more than little edges like that. So we live on the edge of town. Of medium, most people would say a small city. I'd say a medium-sized city. Of course, I do live in Indiana, so. Oh, there's another washer. Anyway, so we got all kinds of edge around here. We got the larger edge of the river nearby. We got the edge of the stream across the street and the power line easement that runs through there. We got some abandoned lots around us that have grown up full of woods. So we got all that edge around us, and we need to be utilizing that better. We need to be using that to attract in things, and we can also use the fact that there's a lot of squirrel in the area because of all that edge to start hunting squirrel. And we want to attract in some, ooh, there's a nice ripe tomato. Little cherry tomato. We need to utilize that edge to try to bring in some crows and have some crows that hang out at the homestead, because we've had some hawk issues. And if we get chickens, that'll be a big problem. And if we do get crows, we're going to name them Cheryl and Russell. All right, creatively use and respond to change. So like I was saying, we gotta move or redo the garden, make it bigger, change it, how it works, because we observed by watching the garden and how it grows and behaves that we just didn't do it right. It needs to be longer, wider, and more space between the rows. Because, here, let me show you. The tomatoes and the cucumber plant have grown together. Yeah. See the path right here in front of me. And it just kind of disappears. It's really hard to get to that back corner. So we need wider beds and wider paths too. And the wider paths will give us the advantage of not only being able to get in here better and maneuver better, but also they'll store more rainwater that comes off the chicken coop. Also, we got other changes that happen. Changes in weather. Changes in seasons. So, this is something we're not doing a very good job yet, but we should be planting broccoli in the spring, and then broccoli again going into fall, that we can get 2 harvests of broccoli. Grow lettuce the same way. So utilize the fact that the seasons change and the weather changes, instead of going, oh man, it's fall, I'm going to slowly lose my garden. Go, hey, it's fall. That gives me a chance to grow these other things. This is a giant weed with lots of roots. So we have, like when we moved, or I moved, when me and Sarah got married and I moved, I've been keeping my preparedness group with the one in Ligonier where I lived. And I really need to embrace the fact that I've moved and start building a preparedness group or finding one here in town. This vine runs all the way underneath the bathtub, all the way to the other side. So we need to respond to that change and respond to the fact that I moved, respond to the seasons changing, things like that, and learn to deal with those, or not just deal with them, not just get over them, but their advantages. They help make our lives better, our gardens better, homesteads better, and our lives better. In Proverbs it says, I don't remember where it says, where part of Proverbs, but in Proverbs it says, to everything there's a season. A hippie folk music band made a song about it. Turn, turn, turn. So that's all I got for today. Hope you checked this. If you like this and like the handful I did, I'll link at the end once this becomes a regular video the first half. So I hope you like this. I hope you enjoy it. And remember, we prepare today so we can prosper tomorrow. I didn't hit the exit button. There we go.